What would you do if you returned from visiting your mother and found that your husband had left you a strange note and vanished while you were gone? This is exactly what happened to Ada Seaman Bates in 1902. Her husband, Dr. William Horatio Bates, a wealthy and influential ophthalmologist in New York City, left her this strange letter before disappearing out of the blue. My dear wife, I am called out of town to some major operations. I go with Dr. Forsch, an old student, to do a mastoid, some cataracts, and other operations. He promises me a bonanza. Too bad to miss the horse show, but I am glad to get so much money for us all. I am in such a flurry. Do not worry, I will write details later. Yours lovingly, Willie. After several days of hearing nothing, Mrs. Bates started to search for him, inquiring with family and friends across the United States and Europe. Since her husband was a prominent Mason, the local Masonic Society circulated his picture around the world. Curiously, a letter arrived from England stating that a man matching Dr. Bates' description was working at the Charing Cross Hospital in London after being admitted there as a patient. At that point, Dr. Bates had been missing for 6 weeks and appeared haggard and thin and claimed that he had starved at several points over the last few weeks. Mrs. Bates boarded a ship for England, but when she arrived, Dr. Bates didn't even recognize her. He called her a stranger and asked her to leave him alone. Dr. Bates was then somehow convinced to join his wife at the Savoy Hotel to rest. There, he said he remembered leaving New York on a ship in order to operate on a brain abscess. However, 2 days after arriving at the Savoy, he disappeared into a London crowd, and Mrs. Bates continued to search for him until the day she died, sadly without seeing him again. Several years later, in 1910, a friend of Dr. Bates happened to be passing through the small town of Grand Forks, North Dakota. Astonishingly, he ran into Dr. Bates, who had set up a small ophthalmology practice for himself there. His friend convinced him to return to New York, where they went into practice together. Back in New York, Dr. Bates started to perpetuate theories of eye care that were considered misinformation both then and now. He was then asked to stop making these claims by the Federal Trade Commission in 1929. So what exactly happened to this handsome and wealthy doctor when he disappeared at the height of his career? No one knows. Several theories include some form of amnesia, dissociative fugue, which is when someone loses memory of information about themselves and seemingly aimlessly wanders. Also, he could have just made the whole thing up in order to escape his old life for some reason. If that was the case, then the secret died with Dr. Bates in 1931, and we probably will never know. What do you think happened?